Hello, friends. It's your guy, it's your dude, it's your man, your most terrible comrade and dark ally, the knick-knack, cardiac attack, paddywhack, Raptus, here to show you the way that we do modern Swift networking code for HTTP data download. You can find the repository link in the video description. Like, subscribe, and share with your friends. Today, we're building this Restful iOS client. It uses data from the Cocktail DB to download information about drinks, which are mainly alcoholic. Ultimately, we produce this lightweight yet stylish list of information about our drinks. The networking code all works with the modern async await system. We use JSON decoder to convert the data into a workable format. We're going to do real data previews as well, from real JSON that comes from the actual service. Finally, to download all the images, we're going to queue up a bunch of concurrent tasks as part of a task group. When any of these tasks finishes, the image will be stored and the UI will refresh and display the image appropriately. If this particular web service is down, feel free to swap it out with your service of choice. Obviously, you would need to make some minor alterations. However, many of these patterns are pretty universal. So let's go ahead and kick it off. I'm going to go into Xcode and say File, New Project. I'm going to select iOS and App. Next, I'm going to name this Drink Downloader. And I'm going to get rid of the previews and dive into the build settings and go into info for the target drink downloader. And what I want to do is add a row. So I just right click and add a row. And I'm going to select App Transport Security Settings. I'm going to expand that group. And after it is expanded, I'm going to click this plus. And I'm going to select Allow Arbitrary Loads. And I'm just going to make sure the value for that is set to yes. We are going to be using a secure web service, but I've found that this is sometimes still necessary. Let's go ahead and get some information about our web service. I'm going to make a place to store that though. I'm going to make a new file, and that's going to be a Swift file, and I'm going to call this response model. Then I'm going to open the browser, and I'm going to just Google Cocktail DB API. And here is the API. I'm going to go ahead and copy this search cocktail by name. And I'm going to paste this into Xcode. I'll also put this in the video description. Then I'm going to go ahead and hit this API, but I'm going to change the search to vodka. So this is what a response from the API is going to look like. A big wad of JSON. I'm just going to put this in the file so we have it. I'm also going to go to JSON lint, and I'm going to paste all this data into JSON lint and validate it. and I'm going to copy it in its formatted form back into Xcode as well. So there it all is. I'm just going to go ahead and comment out that huge block. So that's the data we're working with. Feel free to study it in deeper detail. Alrighty, let's start to lay out some of the bone structure of our app. So I'm going to create a view for a model view model. I'm going to right click on the root level directory, select new file. This is going to be a SwiftUI view, and I'm going to name this drink list view. And I'm going to do the same thing again. Right click on the root level directory, new file. This time I'm going to select a Swift file, and this is going to be drink list view model. I'm going to go ahead and start building this. So I'm going to import SwiftUI, and I'm going to say class drink list view model, and this is going to adopt observable object. I'm going to give it a mock preview to use in our previews. So I'm going to say static func preview that will return a drink list view model. And I'm just going to say let result equal a new instance of drink list view model and return result. Let's link it up to the view. So I'm going to go to drink list view, and I'm going to add an observed object var view model, and this is of course a drink list view model. The preview should complain. When it does, I'm just going to add the argument view model, and this is going to be drink list view model dot preview. And I'm going to change this text from hello world to hello drink. I'm going to navigate to drink downloader app, and I'm going to create an instance of this view model. So I'm going to say let drink list view model equal a new instance of drink list view model. I'm going to get rid of content view. I'm going to replace that with drink list view, and the view model that takes as an argument is going to be drink list view model. Now I can just delete content view, and I'm going to drag these files up to the top, and I'm just going to run really quick to make sure that's all linked up correctly. Hello drink, looks like it is. Alrighty, let's go ahead and hit that web service with the bare minimum amount of code possible. So I'm going to grab the URL from InResponse model. I'm just going to copy that to the clipboard. Then I'm going to go to drink list view model, and I'm going to make a func called download drinks, and this is going to be asynchronous. So I write async, and I'm going to use this URL string. So I'm going to say let URL string equal exactly what we copied. I'm going to change it a tiny bit. I'm going to add https:// in front of it, and I'm going to change the search to be gen. Alright, now I'd like to say guard let URL equals a URL taking a string as an argument, with that string being URL string, else. I guess we can throw an error and make this throwing. I'll just say throws. So I will throw a URL error of type bad URL. Now I'll just really quickly print this URL. I'll say print downloading from, and that's going to be URL dot absolute string. And here comes our one-liner to download the code. I'm going to say let data response equals try await URL session dot shared dot data from URL, and pass in our URL. And I would like to see what response code I get as well. So I'm going to say if let HTTP response equals response as an HTTP URL response. And I just want to print response code, and that's going to be HTTP response dot status code. And we should have data here. So I'll say print downloaded blank bytes of data. And blank is going to be data.count. So when are we going to call this function? Let's just call it on init. So I'm going to init. And here I'm going to make a task. And in this task, since our function throws, this is going to need to be inside of a do catch. So I'm going to say do, and then catch let error. And if there is an error, I'm going to print URL connection error, and then the error's localized description. But in the do, I'm simply going to say try await download drinks. So let's run it and see if we get those printouts. All right, we downloaded 37,000 bytes of data and got a 200 response. Alrighty, let's decode that data. It's gonna be pretty straightforward, but it's a bit daunting to look at all this data. So I'm just gonna copy the very top drink from this formatted list of drinks. And I'm gonna start from the inside out. We've got kind of this outer structure, this outer dictionary, which contains an array of these inner objects, which I'm gonna call drinks, or just drink. So I'm gonna go ahead and make it. I'll say struct drink, and this is gonna be decodable. I'm gonna paste all that JSON inside of drink. And what do I want from here? For sure, ID drink, and I don't want that to be optional. So I'm gonna say let ID drink be a string, and str drink, this is the name. So I'm gonna say let str drink, that's gonna be a string, also not optional. The other things I want is the thumbnail to download the image. I'll make this one optional, so I'll say let str drink thumb be a string optional. And I'd also like the glass, so I'm gonna say let str glass be a string, and everything else here will be optional. And I suppose there's this instructions, so I'll take the English version of the instructions, say let stir instructions, and that's going to be a string optional. Now I want these ingredients and measures, but I don't want to use all 15. I'm just going to cap it at 8. So I'm literally just going to make 8 vars. So I'm going to say let str ingredient 1 be a string optional. And I'm just going to copy and paste that 8 times. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Same thing for measure. I'm going to say let stir measure 1. That's going to be a string optional. I'm going to copy and paste this 8 times. Maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I think that's enough to render what I would like to render from here. These are going to match up exactly with the coding keys that come from the website. Now I'm just going to build this container, and for that I'm going to build a little struct called response model, and this is going to be decodable. And I won't make this option, I'll just say let drinks be a array of drink. Now I'm going to jump back to drink list view model. Alrighty, let's go ahead and decode this data. So in download drinks, I'm going to say let response model equals try JSON decoder dot decode, and this is going to be response model dot self, and we're decoding that from our data. And I just want to print this off, so I'm going to print response model, and that is response model. And since our JSON decoding can throw an error, I want to change this from URL connection error to just drink download error. I'm just going to run and see if we get that printout. Alright, it looks good. I can see a lot of optionals, but it looks like our data. So let's start to expose some of this data to the outside world. So I'm going to have a published array of drinks on drink list view model, and this is essentially going to be the model of our model view model. So I'll say published var drinks, and this is going to be an array of drink. And then at the end of download drinks, I want to update the UI. That has to be done on the main thread. So I say await main actor.run, and this is going to be self.drinks equals response model.drinks. And to render one of these cells, I'd like to be able to get at least one little bit of information from one of our drinks. So I'm just going to build a little helper function real quick, func name. This is going to be for drink. That's going to be a drink. It's going to return a string, and our name is drink.strdrink. All right, now let's build our previews. And this is going to be a bit of a tricky step. It has to be done exactly correctly, or it's not going to work correctly. So I'm going to copy this URL for our search for gin, and I'm going to paste it into my browser. And what I'm going to do is select one drink from this list of drinks. So that starts with an open curly brace and an ID drink. And it's going to go all the way until a closing curly brace. So you need to precisely select one drink. And I'm going to copy that. And I'm going to escape this. So I'm going to search for /escape string. And there's this tool which will add the slashes into your string. I'm going to copy that, and I want to use that JSON, that escape string, to generate a preview of a drink. So I'm going to real quick make a new file on the root level directory of type Swift file. And this is going to be drink plus preview. And I'm going to make an extension for drink. And this is going to have one of our traditional preview functions. So I'm going to say static func preview. And that's going to return a drink. And now I've still got that JSON string on my clipboard. So I'm going to say let JSON string equals that whole big thing. And it must be correct. And how do I get a drink from that? Well, we can decode it, but first we have to turn this string into data. So I'm going to say guard let JSON data equals JSON string dot data, and we can just use UTF-8 encoding. Else, I'm just going to have this be a fatal error. And then I'm going to go ahead and decode. So I'm going to say guard let result equals try failing JSON decoder dot decode, and this is going to be a drink.self from JSON data. Else, fatal error. And then I'm just going to return result here. Now I want to make the same type of preview for the whole response. So I'm going to right click on the root directory again, new file, Swift file, and I'm going to say response model plus preview. And now I'm going to make an extension for response model, and I'm going to have a static func preview returning a response model. Now I'm just going to copy the body of the preview function from drink. So everything inside of the function from JSON string down to result, copied and pasted into response model. But we can't use this JSON, that's just for a drink. And we're going to have to decode to a response model this time instead. So I'm going back to the browser, back to this JSON response, and I'm going to select the whole darn thing. And I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to /escape the whole darn thing. And I'm going to copy that. And this is going to be big. I'm going to paste all that stuff into JSON string. So assuming these previews work, I'm going to fix the preview for drink list view model to include our response preview. So I'm going to say let response model equals response model.preview. And I'm going to say result.drinks equals response model.drinks. Okay, now we've got these fancy schmancy previews. Let's use them. So I'm going to start building a cell for these drinks so we can start to build some of our UI. So I'm going to right click on the root level directory, make a new file. This is going to be a SwiftUI view, and I'm going to call this drink cell view. And I'm going to drag this up to drink list view. It goes with drink list view. So drink cell view is going to be for rendering a drink. So we're going to have a let drink be of type drink. And we're going to be using little hooks on our view model to convert some of this stuff into strings. And the view model is going to help us update when, for example, those images download. So I'm just going to make a copy of the lists view model on drink cell view. So I'm going to say observed object var view model of type drink list view model. So let's get the preview to quit complaining. For view model, we could use the preview. I don't think we need all that response JSON, so I'm just going to do an init for the view model. But for the drink, I'm going to do drink.preview. Now I want to preview everything on a gray background because I plan to use a gray background. So I'm going to make a VStack surrounding this thing, and I'm going to make the background color of that be color.gray. And I'm just going to add a spacer before and after the cell view. And let's quickly get something showing up from our drink. And I'd like to add that to something that I'll call title row. So I'll say private func title row. And this returns the opaque type some view. And I'm going to use an hstack. And within this hstack, I want a text, and I want it to be the name of the drink. We added that little hook to our view model, so I can say view model.name for our drink. I'd like this to be pinned to the left, so I'm going to add a spacer in that hstack. And now for body, I'm just going to make it be a VStack, and inside of this VStack, I'm going to put title row. I'm going to go ahead and use the preview, and let's make sure we get real data. So I'm seeing gin fizz. If you're not seeing anything, you probably made a mistake with getting your preview linked up properly. All right. So I don't just want this to be transparent. I want kind of that cell style background, and I want it to be something white with a shadow. So I'm going to say private func cell background, and I'm going to have that be some view. And for now, I'm just going to say rounded rectangle, corner radius 12. I'm going to fill that in, and I'm going to make the foreground color be white. And I want the background color of title row to be blue. So I'm going to say .background color.blue, but I would like it to be a more thin blue. So I'm going to say opacity 0.5. Then I kind of want to contrast that title with some naked space. So I'm just going to add a little spacer in this VStack with a fixed height. So I'm going to make a spacer and make the frame be height something like 60. And I'd love to put this whole thing inside of a Z stack. So I'm going to put that V stack inside of a Z stack. And I'm going to make the background for this Z stack be our cell background. Now we can see that rounded rectangle. I want to go ahead and pad this a bit. So I'm going to add some padding to this root level Z stack. Most importantly, the horizontal, for which I'm going to pick 24. But I'd also like to add a little bit of vertical padding, for which I will pick 6. Now we can see a bug, which is that these corners from that blue spill out over where we would want them to be clipped. So I'm just going to go ahead and add a clip shape to our body before the background. I'm going to say clip shape and have that be a rounded rectangle of corner radius 12. So what about that shadow? I'm going to add it to cell background. I'm going to say that shadow, and I'm going to make the color be black with an opacity of 0.6. I'm going to make the radius be 4.0. I'm going to make the X offset be negative 2.0. And I'm going to make the Y offset be 4.0. So we've got a nice little shadow on that cell now. I think our title row needs some more padding and maybe a bigger font. So I'm going to add some padding to title row. I'm going to say dot padding dot vertical, have that be 12, dot padding horizontal, have that be 24. I really like the number 24. For this text, I want it bigger, so I'm going to say dot font. I'll use a system font of size 34, and I'll make it bold. And I'm going to make that white, so I'm going to say foreground color white. And I'm going to kill the preview. Okie dokie, looking good, feeling great. Let's now move away from this view and away from the preview and make sure we can really link this stuff up in the real app. We're building an app, not just a preview. So we need to loop through our array of drinks with one of those 4 eaches. And the way I like to do that is by making them identifiable. So I'm going to go into response model, and I'm going to make an extension for drink where it is identifiable. And I'm just going to say var id string, and that is going to be id drink. And I'm just going to delete all this JSON. I don't think we need it anymore. And then I'm going to go into drink list view model, and I'm going to get rid of this thing where we print response model. It's just too much. But now I'm going to jump into drink list view. And all we have is just this text that says hello drink. So it's time to build something real. I'm going to delete that, and I'm going to replace it all with a scroll view. And remember when I said I wanted the background to be gray? That is still true. So I want the background for this scroll view to be color.gray. And inside of the scroll view, I want to for each through viewModel.drinks. And then I can get a drink in. And this is where I want to use my drink cell view. So drink cell view takes a view model and a drink. Let's check out the preview. All right, we've got our whole giant list of gens. Cool. We've done a lot with the preview, so I'd like to actually test it out real quick. I'm gonna run it. Yeah, there we go. Big list of gens. Okie dokie, pretty good. I'd just like to add a little bit more padding to this for each. So I'm gonna say padding top and have that be 24. Then I'm gonna say padding bottom. And I'm an ads guy, so I'm gonna give myself 120 pixels at the bottom. If I scroll all the way down, I've got that nice room for a banner ad. All right, it's time for more stuff. I'm going to go to drink list view model, and similarly to how we have name, I want a function for the glass type. So func glass for drink. This is going to be a drink returning a string, and this is just going to be drink dot, it's called the str glass, which is optional, so if that's null, nothing. And there's another one, instructions, much longer string. So I'm going to say func instructions for drink of type drink returning a string. This is going to be drink.str instructions, and if that's nil, empty string. So let's bone out some UI for that. I'm going to jump into drink cell view. I'm going to go ahead and kick open that preview. And similarly to how there's title row, I'd like to add a new one for glass. So private func glass row, and this is going to return some view. And I'd like to just do a similar hstack, and then have padding horizontal, which is 24. This time I'll do padding vertical and have that be 8. And I just want a text in here, which is going to be view model dot glass for drink. And I'm going to add glass row right in here. Glass row. There it is. Okie dokie. So I want that glass row pinned to the left. So I'm going to add a spacer here. I'd also like the font to be just a little bit bigger. So I'm going to do a font, which will be a system font of size 24. And I want a decoration. So at the beginning of this H stack, I'm going to add a Z stack. And in this Z stack, I'm going to add a circle, and I'm going to fill in that circle, and I'm going to make the color of it be blue. And I want to make it have a specific size, so I'm going to make the frame be width 36 and height also 36. I'm going to crack open SF symbols, and I want something that looks like a glass. So I'm going to search for glass, and I'm going to choose wine glass. I'm going to right click on that and say copy name. And in the Z stack, after circle, I'm going to do an image with a system name of the thing I just copied. And I can control the size of that using font. So I'm going to say .font. This is going to be a system font of size. I'm going to pick 22, and I'm going to make the foreground color be white. Okay, looking good, feeling great. I'm going to get rid of this little spacer. I don't think we need it anymore. And I prefer to have 0 spacing in this VStack. So I'm going to say spacing 0. And now I'm going to build out that instructions row. So I'm going to say private func instructions row. It's going to be a sum view. And this again is going to be an H stack. And it again is going to have a padding horizontal of 24 and a padding vertical of 8. And I just want to add a text here, which is going to be view model dot instructions for our drink. I'm going to add that in and see what it looks like. Instructions row. Super excellent. I think I'm just going to beef up that font size a little bit. So on instructions row, I'm going to make the font be a system font of size 18. And I'm going to add a spacer to make sure we stay left aligned. And these instructions could potentially be long. I want to give it some limit, so I want to say the line limit is 6. And then I want to get rid of that preview and see if it works for real. I'm pretty sure it does. Yeah, there we go. Okie dokie. Let's add even more. Let's take a look at our drink model really quick. These ingredients and measures go hand in hand. So it's something like ice cube and 4 ice cubes, things of that nature. So what I really would like is for these to be arrays instead of just a list of 8 different individual vars. So I'm going to make some helper functions on drink list view model. One to get the ingredient name list. So I'm going to say func ingredient name list. That's going to be for a drink of type drink. This returns an array of string. So I'm going to say var result equals an array of string, and then return result. And I'm just going to manually check all 8 of them. So I'm going to say if let name equals drink dot str ingredient 1, then result dot append name. I'm going to copy and paste this 8 times. And I'm going to do ingredient 2, ingredient 3, ingredient 4, ingredient 5, 6, 7, and 8. Now I'm going to do the same thing for the measures. So I'm going to say func ingredient measure list, again for a drink of type drink, returning an array of strings. And I'm going to say var result equals an array of strings, return result. And now it's going to be if let measure equals drink dot str measure 1, then result dot append measure. I'm going to copy and paste this 8 times. So it's going to be measure 1, measure 2, measure 3, measure 4, measure 5, measure 6, measure 7, and measure 8. So I'd like to make a little model that our UI can loop through that combines both of these. So I'm going to make a struct ingredient row model, and I'm going to make this identifiable, which means it's going to need an ID. I'm just going to generate my own, so I'll have it be an int. And then it gets a name, which is a string, and it gets a measure, which is also a string. Coolness. Now let's serve up a list of these ingredient row models for a drink. And I'm going to go down here with our other big helpers, and I'm going to say func ingredients for drink of type drink, and this returns an array of ingredients row model. So I'm going to say var result equals an array of ingredients row model, and then return result. And I just want to grab both of these lists and loop through to the minimum of either of the two's count. So I'm going to say let names equals ingredients name list for drink, and then let measures equals ingredient measure list for drink. I'm going to say let count equal the min of names.count and measures.count. I'm going to say for index in 0 to count, let name equal names index, and let measure equal measures index. And I'm going to say let row model equals ingredient row model, and it takes these 3 arguments. I'll put them on 3 lines. For ID, I'll just use index. For name, obviously we have the name. For measure, obviously we have the measure. And I'm going to say result.append row model. Let's use it. So I'm going to go to drink cell view. Okie dokie. So now we can for each through those ingredients. And I'm going to put this in between glass row and instructions row. I'm going to say for each view model dot ingredients for drink. And then this is going to be ingredient in blah. And I'm going to make another little helper function called ingredient row. So private func ingredient row for ingredient of type drink list view model dot ingredients row model, returning some view. And I want to do my same H stack with padding horizontal at 24 and padding vertical at 8. And I just want to add a text for ingredient name and a text for ingredient measure. So if I go into this for each and I add an ingredient row for that ingredient, I should be able to open up the preview and see something show up. Cool. Gin 2 ounces, lemon juice. And I just want to clean this up a little bit. So for ingredient row, I want it to be measure colon name. So I'm going to do it like that. I'm going to have a string concatenating measure and have a little colon and a space. And then I'm going to put a spacer after so that it's left aligned. I also want to give these a fixed font size, so I'm going to do font system of size, and I'm going to pick 18 again for both. Font system of size 18. And I want these to have like a nutrition label line separators. So I'm going to add a background to this. Background of rectangle. And I'm going to stroke that. And then I'm going to make the foreground color be gray. And I'm going to kill the preview and run it again. Cool. Yeah, looking better. So we've got a lot of content for each one of these drinks. Gin smash, gin tonic, gin tonic, gin lemon. The list goes on. All right. Now let's download images using the new API with TaskGroup. So I'm going to go to drink list view model, and below download drinks, I'm going to make another asynchronous function. So func download images, and this is going to be async. And I'm going to await with throwing task group of, and these are going to be voids. So I'm going to do void.self, and for the body, I'm going to use trailing closure syntax. This is going to be group returning void in, and I'm going to loop through my drinks. So for drink in drinks, I want to add a task to my task group. So I'm going to say group dot add task, and in this task I'm going to say guard let URL string equal drink dot stir drink thumb, else this is going to be an error, so I'm going to throw a URL error, and this is going to be a dot unsupported URL. Then I'm going to say guard let URL equals a URL with that string, URL string, else I'm going to throw a URL error, which is a bad URL. Then I'm going to grab the image data, so I'm going to say let data and don't care equal try await URL session dot shared dot data from URL. Then I'm going to say guard let image equals UI image from data, our data, else I'm going to throw a URL error of type cannot decode raw data. Then I'm just going to print that we got an image. So I'm going to print image downloaded, and I'm going to print the size, image.size.width by image.size.height. And at the end of download drinks, I'm going to await download images. I'm just going to run and see if I get a printout. Okay, so it looks like we downloaded a bunch of 700 by 700 images. Beautifulness. So now we want to store these images in a dictionary that the UI can ultimately pull them from. So to store them in a dictionary, I'm going to make drink be hashable. So I'm going to go to response model. I'm going to say extension drink hashable. And I'm going to make the hash function hash into hasher. I'm going to say hasher.combine. And I'm just going to do the ID, which is ID drink. Now I'm going to go back to drink list view model, and I'm going to make this dictionary. So I'm going to say published var image dict equals a dictionary of drink to UI image. And whenever we download an image on the main actor, I'm going to stick it in that dictionary. So I'm going to say await main actor.run self.image dict at drink equals image. Now I need a way for the UI to be able to pluck out that image. So I'm going to say func image for drink, giving us a drink, returning an optional UI image. I'm just going to say if let result equals image dict for drink, return result, otherwise return nil. Now I'm going to jump to drink cell view. Excelsior. So let's put a knife in this thing. We're just going to have the image be a little underlay that goes under everything. So I'm going to go near cell background, near the bottom. Say private func image underlay. And this is going to be a sum view. And I only want this if we have the image. So if let image equals view model dot image for drink, then I would like to have an image which can take a UI image of the type R image. And I want this to be resizable, and I want this to have an aspect ratio with a content mode of fill. And I don't want it to be fully visible. I want it to be a little bit transparent. So opacity 0.28. Since we have this if here, we could potentially return multiple types of things. So we're just going to make this image underlay be a view builder. Where are we going to add image underlay? Well, let's do it before we clip on the Z stack. So I'm going to say dot background image underlay. And all the network activity and stuff works in the preview. So let's take a look at it there. Yeah, you can see that glass of gin downloaded. All right, let's run it and be done with it. So there we go. All of our images downloading successfully. Of course, we can rotate and things might get a little bit goofy, but it still all is completely readable. That is it. Pat yourself on the back, like, subscribe, tell your friends about it, and happy coding, friends. Goodbye.